Political hacking the U.S. elections, what's up with WikiLeaks, and Russia today. The U.S. continues to make noises about retaliation against Russian hackers. Russia sheds crocodile tweets. A retired general pleads guilty to lying to the FBI. The shadow brokers say really they want someone to bid, or else. Level 3 keeps score on the Mirai botnet. And, fellow youths, you may, after all, be the weakest link. Time to take a moment for our sponsor, E8 Security, and let me ask you a question. Do you fear the unknown? Lots of people do, of course. Bigfoot, the Yeti, stuff like that. But we're not talking about those. We're talking about real threats, unknown unknowns lurking in your network. The people at E8 have a white paper on hunting the unknowns with machine learning and big data analytics that go beyond the old-school legacy signature matching and human watch standing. Go to e8security.com/DHR and download their free white paper, Detect, Hunt, Respond. It describes a fresh approach to the old problem of recognizing and containing a threat no one has ever seen before. The known unknowns, like crop circles and what happened to Amelia Earhart, they're nothing compared to the unknown unknowns out there in the wild. See what E8's got to say about them. e8security.com/DHR and check out that white paper. And we thank E8 for sponsoring our show. I'm Dave Bittner in Baltimore with your CyberWire summary for Tuesday, October 18th, 2016. Today's cybersecurity news combines the odd, the unseemly, and the lurid, which isn't surprising since so much of it turns on politics and great power competition. After much speculation yesterday that the U.S. had hacked him, WikiLeaks confirms that Julian Assange's internet connectivity has indeed been cut, and it's still apparently down, but that it wasn't cut by the United States. Instead, the Ecuadorian government is said to be responsible for the outage. Assange, as we know, is currently enjoying asylum in Ecuador's embassy in London. He's wanted in Sweden for indecent assault, a charge he denies. Ecuador's government was silent on connectivity issues, but did indicate they will continue to extend Assange asylum. Also yesterday, RT, Russia Today, a news outlet closely aligned with President Putin's government, has had some of its assets in the UK frozen. Its British bank, NatWest, says it's closing RT's accounts, that the decision is not up for negotiation and that it wasn't taken lightly. RT has since been shedding crocodile tweets on behalf of freedom of speech. The connections between the stories are as follows. Both WikiLeaks and Russia Today have been closely involved with, respectively, releasing and reporting on documents related to the campaign of U.S. presidential candidate Clinton. Those documents are, as one would expect, not reflecting great credit upon the candidate or her associates. We note in passing that it's very difficult to look good in email. The Clinton campaign has responded by suggesting that the doxed emails may have been altered by the Russians. Corruption of data is obviously a very real possibility, especially in information operations mounted by the Russian government, and the U.S. government agrees that Russia is behind most of the election-related hacking seen this season. But the suggestion that the emails were hoaxed stops short even of denial, even the non-denial denial, and amounts to a kind of counsel of a priori caution. This could happen, don't you know? And they also point out that paying attention to these kinds of revelations merely plays into the hands of the Russians, who would like to play kingmaker in next month's U.S. elections. The U.S. has blamed Russia's government for the hacks that compromised the files now being published. It's also promised some unspecified form of retaliation, and President Putin has noted with sadness that this amounts to an American admission at a high level that it engages in state-sponsored hacking. Mr. Putin clearly has Vice President Biden's remarks about retaliation in mind here. That the U.S. has conducted offensive cyber operations in the past would seem to receive some confirmation from the guilty plea retired U.S. General Cartwright entered yesterday. He allocated, as they say on Law & Order, to lying to the FBI about having discussed Stuxnet with reporters. The New York Times has expressed some muted disapproval of the prosecution's First Amendment implications. General Cartwright also said that he was not the original source of the leaks. But in the case of Fancy Bear and Cozy, the promised U.S. response remains unspecified. It is, however, supposed to be a Lulu, something that will send a message that Russia's president cannot misread. Russian spokesmen have expressed both outrage at the stated U.S. intentions and scorn for the capabilities the U.S. darkly hints it may deploy. There's much speculation but little direct evidence that both NatWest Bank and the government of Ecuador may be responding to U.S. inducements to act against Russian interests and those of Julian Assange. Speaking of Mr. Assange, the Twitterverse was much agitated by rumors that he had died, either conventionally assassinated or done to death by a tainted vegan meal. Baywatch alumni Pamela Anderson is said to have taken him over the weekend. In any case, he's fine. The furor seems to have been ignited over some ambiguous tweets with numerical sequences in them WikiLeaks broadcast after Assange lost connectivity in his embassy quarters. Those were interpreted as a kind of dead man's switch, but whatever they were, again, Mr. Assange appears to be okay. Other documents, these released and not leaked, suggest that former Secretary of State Clinton may have shared classified information with uncleared consigliere Sidney Blumenthal over her now famous private email server. Other material disclosed from the FBI investigation of said server appear to suggest a senior State Department official asked for retrospective declassification of some material in exchange for his good offices in expediting FBI diplomatic assignments to hitherto unavailable embassy posts. The Virlock strain of ransomware continues to be a threat. We spoke with Ravi Balupari from Netskope on what they're seeing Virlock do in the wild.
What we have observed is some of the latest variants are exhibiting a new propagation vector, which equates to creating a cloud malware fan-out effect.
Okay, so take us through that. How are these new variations of Virlock affecting things in the cloud?
So let's walk through one scenario, right? Let's say you have an enterprise with hundreds of users, and they are using a cloud application, let's say a cloud storage application such as Box. Now, in a typical enterprise, people collaborate on documents. So the user A is actually sharing the document with user B, and the user B in turn can share it with multiple other users. The user B can also share other documents with other users. But in the Virlock, ransomware, the fan-out effect, let's say the user A's device is infected with ransomware, especially with Virlock. The documents on his machine get synced to the cloud. Once the documents are synced to the cloud, those documents in the cloud would get synced to all the users with whom the document is shared. Now, since the user A is infected with Virlock, the Virlock infected document is synced to the cloud. The same document is getting back onto user B's machine, and user B, inadvertently, clicks open the document. He would in fact get reinfected with Virlock, and then all the documents on his machine would get encrypted with Virlock. And if he has shared other documents with other users, they would again get synced to the cloud, and then they would go back to the other users' machines. So as you can notice, there's a pattern here wherein the infection is growing through the enterprise. You can think of it more like a worm, where Virlock virus ransomware is spreading through the network.
That's Ravi Balupari from Netskope. The shadow brokers still haven't got any real bids on their auction of Equation Group tools. They tell anyone who may still believe this is a real auction that they've now had it. As the Register puts it in an homage to Blazing Saddles, pay the brokers 10 Bitcoin or the code gets it. Level 3 has been working on the Mirai Internet of Things botnet. They've developed a list of indicators of compromise and believe that almost 500,000 bots, most of them in the US, Colombia, and Brazil, are being herded via Mirai malware. Level 3 concludes from this that a lot of DVRs and IP cameras owned by consumers and small businesses are being herded, and that a large number of bots are being deployed against single victims. What can you do? Level 3 recommends the 2 Ps, patches and passwords. Finally, my fellow youths, I have some news we'd like to hip you to. The younger crowd likes to think that it's mostly geezers and has-beens who fall for the tech support scam, where someone calls you up and says your computer has a problem, and that they can fix it if you give them control by handing over your password. But it turns out it's not the gray-headed duffers who swallow the bait hook, line, and sinker. It's millennials. A study by Microsoft and the National Cybersecurity Alliance finds that half, that's right, half, of the marks who fall for this hoary con are between the ages of 18 and 35. So be careful, youths, what you tell the strangers who call. And while you're at it, get off my lawn. Time for a message from our sponsor, clearedjobs.net. If you're a cybersecurity professional and you're looking for a career opportunity, you need to check out the free Cyber Job Fair on the first day of Cyber Maryland, Thursday, October 20th at the Baltimore Hilton, hosted by clearedjobs.net. They're a veteran-owned specialist at matching security professionals with rewarding careers. The Cyber Job Fair is open to all cybersecurity professionals, both cleared and non-cleared. It's open to college students in cybersecurity programs, too. You'll connect face-to-face with over 30 employers like Swift, DISA, and the Los Alamos National Laboratory. You can also tune up your resume and get some career coaching, all of it's free, from career expert and Air Force veteran Patra Frame. To learn more, visit clearedjobs.net and click Job Fairs in the main menu. Remember, that's clearedjobs.net, and we'll see you in downtown Baltimore. And we thank clearedjobs.net for sponsoring our show. Joining me once again is Markus Rauschecker. He's the Cybersecurity Program Manager at the University of Maryland Center for Health and Homeland Security. Markus saw an article in Wired magazine about New York cracking down on Mattel and Hasbro for tracking kids online. What can you tell us about the regulations when it comes to tracking our kids?
Yeah, so in this day and age, I think most of us take it for granted that when we go online, a lot of information is collected about us in terms of where we go to shop, what we buy, what sites we visit. All of that is being tracked constantly as we're surfing the web. And for the most part, I think we've kind of accepted that and we're okay with that. But it seems that we're not okay with that when it comes to our kids. And there is actually a law in place, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which helps parents protect their kids when information is collected about them online. Parents want to know that their kids are protected when they are online. And this law, COPA for short, allows parents to be reassured when it comes to letting their kids surf online. Basically, what the law says, what COPA says, is that websites that are specifically targeted to kids need to have policies in place and terms of service in place that allow parents to know exactly what kind of information the website would be collecting about their kids when the kids are on the website. This is specifically for kids under the age of 13.
Yeah, I see a lot of television commercials for products that say, visit our website. But when they're kids' products, they often say, ask your parents before you visit our website. And I guess that ties into this.
Right. So whenever a product or a website is targeted specifically for kids under the age of 13, there's going to need to be some parental notification there as well, so that parents will make the decision about whether or not their kids will be able to go on that website and interact with the website. And
in this case, New York decided that both Mattel and Hasbro were not up to the standards of the law, and they got hit with some pretty hefty fines.
Right. So the penalties can be pretty hefty when a company doesn't follow the law in this case. I think that's understandable in that most of us would want to make sure that our kids are protected to the greatest extent possible. So the fines are pretty hefty for any violations of these rules accordingly.
Yeah, according to the article in Wired, they paid a combined total of $835,000 in fines. That'll buy a lot of Barbies.
Yeah.
All right, Markus, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And that's the CyberWire. Thanks to our sponsors for making the CyberWire possible. The CyberWire podcast is produced by Pratt Street Media. Our editor is John Petrick. Our social media editor is Jennifer Iben. And our technical editor is Chris Russell. Our executive editor is Peter Kilpie. And I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening.